I was at this party with this friend of mine, Pam, and we were going to leave the party, and she said to me, "Do you know who that was standing by the door?" I said, "No." And she said, "That was Taylor Dayne." And I was like, "Oh my God, I love Taylor Dayne." I don't know, do you guys know Taylor Dayne? Yeah, she was no, you're shaking your head no. She was in the 80s. She was a pop singer in the 80s and 90s. She sang "Love Will Lead You Back." She sang "Tell It to My Heart." And now you're nodding your head. I'll sing it for you. I know, I just said I was going to sing it. In fact, that was my idea. And at this point, all you're doing is holding up the process, because I'm like, I'm going to sing it, and you're like, sing it. And then I'm like, yeah, I know, I said I was going to sing it. So if you don't mind, I'm going to sing it. Does that sound familiar? Anyway, I love Taylor Dayne, and not ironically. I love her. So I went back into the party, and I went up to her, and I said, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but I just have to tell you, I love your voice." And she just turned and said, "Yeah, I don't do that anymore." And I looked over, and this other friend of mine was doubled over laughing at me. She was like, "Yeah, you just got dissed by Taylor Dayne." It felt horrible. So I left the party. Then 9 months passed, and I happened to be out to eat with that same friend of mine, Pam. There was a party of 10 that was seated right behind us. You guys are not going to believe who was sitting there. Yeah, it was Taylor Dayne. It's exactly who it was. Pam said, "Oh my gosh, you have to say something to her." And I said, "No question." Because I still love Taylor Dayne. But I didn't know what to say to her. And then I realized the best thing that I could say to Taylor Dayne would be the exact same sentence that I said to her the first time. So I turned around, and I interrupted her entire dinner. And I said, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but I just have to tell you, I love your voice." And she said, "My speaking voice?" And I said, "Yes." I was sitting here with my friend. I heard someone talking behind me. I said, I need to turn around and compliment this person on their speaking voice. And what I didn't realize at the time was that Taylor Dayne was no longer pursuing a singing career. She was pursuing an acting career, which I guess is why she was no longer accepting compliments on her singing voice. And then about a year passed. And at this point, I've told all of my friends about my run-ins with Taylor Dayne and how she's the easiest person in the world to run into. So I was at my writing partner, Kyle's house, and my phone rang, and it was Sarah Silverman. And at the time, Sarah was dating Jimmy Kimmel. Sarah called and said, "Guess who's promoting a CD on Jimmy's show tomorrow night. You guys will not believe who it was. Yeah, it was. It was Taylor Dayne. So Sarah called and said, I want you to come down to Jimmy's show tomorrow night, and I want you to say those exact same words that you said the other times. And I said, no question. But I didn't end up having to go to Jimmy's show the next night. Because that same day, don't shake your head at me. That same day that Sarah called me at Kyle's house, Kyle and I took a lunch break, and we ordered lunch to be picked up. We walked across the street to the strip mall where the restaurant was. Kyle was walking in front of me. I was walking behind him. He walked up to the restaurant. He opened the door. He looked at this table. Then he looked back at me. Then he looked back at the table. And then I was like, yeah, of course she's here. Then Kyle and I walked over to the counter where our food was going to be waiting for us. And Kyle was just pacing back and forth, about to have a stroke. And I was like, what is your problem? And he said, nothing. I'm just really uncomfortable right now. And I said, why? And he said, because I know what's about to happen. And I said, yeah. And I can't wait to do it. I said, this has nothing to do with you. I said, this is between me and Taylor Dayne. I said, but what I do need you to do, when I go up to her lunch table, I want you to just take my cell phone and just point it in the general vicinity. Just videotape me talking to Taylor Dayne. So I finally have proof. And he was like, okay. So I walked up to Taylor Dayne's lunch table. And I said, excuse me. I'm sorry to bother you. But I just have to tell you, I love your voice. And she said, thank you. And I was like, that was weird. But the best part was when Kyle and I went back and looked at that video footage, you didn't hear me talking to Taylor Dayne. You just saw me go, and then over that footage, you hear Kyle in an imaginary conversation going, oh, hey. Hey, man, what's going on? I'm having lunch at the chicken cafe, at the at the California Chicken Kitchen Pizza Kitchen Cafe. So the person that Kyle made up in that conversation was the world's most difficult human being that will not let the easy stuff slide. The person on the other half of that conversation is going, whoa, 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 back up, dude. Where are you having lunch? At the Chicken What Cafe? Nah, man, I've never heard of that place. This conversation is going no further until you make it clear to me where exactly you're having lunch right now. Kyle could have made up anybody he wanted to. He could have made up a nice friend. It was all up to him. He actually didn't have to be saying anything at all. He could have just been standing there. And I actually feel confident that I'm the reason that Taylor Dayne ended up putting out another record. Because she called her manager and was like, my fans miss me. They love me. I mean, sure, they're a bunch of he-she-looking robots. Excuse me. I'm sorry to bother you, but I just have to tell you. I love your voice. Excuse me. Sorry to bother you, but I just have to tell you. I love your voice. Excuse me. I'm sorry to bother you. And people are always like, there is no way that story is true. And it's like, why would I make up a 14-minute story about a pop singer that nobody's heard of? And just as a side note, I left out other times that I ran into Taylor Dayne.